To deliver the closing remarks for this year's Cyber Talks, I'd like to introduce Lieutenant General Edward C. Cardon, Commanding General, United States Army Cyber Command.
Thank you all very much. I'm rather old school today with my paper here. I planned to have been here all day, but one of my bosses, not Admiral Rogers in this case, my joint boss, but my Army boss decided we're going to have a senior leader conference today and tomorrow, and we're all having a good time, but as all good plans go awry, the SAS decided they're doing their testimony this afternoon, so he's doing that while I'm here. So it is while the rest are listening to Army programming. I do want to say, though, that I want to start off by thanking everyone for being here. I especially want to thank the National Defense University for hosting us. They've been absolutely gracious hosts once again here. Commander Joseph Gadwill and his whole team here for Lincoln Hall. And also a very big thanks to the Army Cyber Institute, to Colonel Greg Conti, Colonel Raymond, General Hernandez, good to see you here today, for the tremendous work they're doing as thought leaders in the Army cyberspace operations. I also want to thank all the speakers, Army, Joint, Industry, Academia. It's exactly what we envisioned. So first, how about a big round of applause for all those people there. Back when we were thinking about starting this, one of our key tasks we felt that we had to have is the idea of a strong cyber narrative. And that rolls off your tongue, but how do we do that? How do we inform a larger audience? How do we create this collaboration? How do we create this innovation? And when you see Cyber Talks, you can immediately make a reference to TED Talks. And we thought, hey, maybe if we did something like that, but let's just have it focus on cyber. And so this is the second time we've done this. I think it is really moving in the right direction, because one of the cultures that I believe you have to have in cyber and exists in cyber is this culture of constant improvement, adaptation, and innovation. But how do you do that in a world that, for many of us, is classified, but is increasingly coming out into the light in various ways, shapes, and forms? How do you create forums that bring the right people together? And then how do you create this sense of collaboration? Because when government, industry, military, academia, when you put all that together, many of the great ideas in this space come from listening to people. It's like, wait a minute, I think I can do this, or we can do that. And so the intent behind this is, one, to improve our narrative, to explain, to try to make cyber not be what I call a bad word. Right? When you say cyber, the first thing people think of is cyber attack. That's the first thing they think of. And yet cyber is so integral to everything that we do each and every day in our lives and within our societies. The second part of that is, how do we create that culture of innovation? And we've put a lot of thought in this into Army Cyber Command, where I've gotten a lot of help here from the agency and from U.S. Cyber Command. We're going to try and roll some things out, but I actually believe forums like this are what actually help us bring that to light. Because I'm not just talking in the classified world, I'm talking about it writ large. And then finally, the community that's here. So I'm sure many of you met new people here. A lot of cards are changed. Perfect. I talk about this idea of a cyber fabric that exists across the different parts of our society. And what I mean by a cyber fabric, and what I've learned in my short time in cyber, is it's really based on relationships. Relationships are everything in this world. In fact, when people run into problems, they normally think, who knows the answer to this? And there's this connectivity that goes out and helps. How do we harness that? How do we harness that for what we need to do here in this new domain? And so I'm very, very appreciative for everyone being here today. And I think there's no better way to close out this conference than we're going to recognize two individuals. And Greg, you come on up and
So an important part, if you think of where we started this morning, we talked about where we are in history and that we're making history. We'd like to recognize two individuals that really did make history, Major Todd Arnold and Major Rob Harrison. Would you come on down? So in the spring of 2014, Major Arnold and Major Harrison knew one day deep in their hearts that there would be a cyber branch. At that point in time, though, none of us did, except for them. And in their office, they took it upon themselves to design the heraldry for the branch, including the colors, the branch insignia, regimental crest, and everything, including getting it professionally designed, printing copies on 3D printers, and just believing in the cause. And this was in spring, and I'd say kind of matured around May of 2014. Well, a big event occurred in the August-September timeframe when, lo and behold, the cyber branch materialized, and it went from being years away to weeks away. And because they'd done their homework, there was an immediate need, like, oh my God, you know how the Pentagon works. Oh my God, we need heraldry, we need it yesterday. Well, they had it, and we sent it up. And lo and behold, it became the cyber branch insignia. And I thought it's useful for all of us to recognize that, because it's something that we can do. We know where things are going. The more we can work on things in advance and have them ready when they're needed, we all win. So we want to just take a moment and appreciate General Cardon helping us recognize the contribution. So we have two pieces, and I'll read the letter. So we have a star note for each, and it says, on behalf of each soldier, NCO, warrant officer, and Army civilian who will soon join the newest branch, Cyber, please accept my thanks for designating the new branch for designing the new branch insignia. Your elegant design will be worn by every soldier assigned to a Cyber branch and will serve as a tangible symbol of membership in an elite force. Every soldier who proudly wears the Cyber insignia will make a critical contribution to the defense of our nation. Creating a distinct identity for Cyber branch is a critical first step to building a new heritage and culture of professional competence. Thank you for making history, which they indeed have done. So with that, sir, this is for Major Arnold.
Todd, well done. We should do something special with these, okay? But
we're also giving them the one set of factory prototypes that we have of the Cyber branch insignia, because I think they've earned them. So, Claire, did you get pictures? You got pictures.
If I could. So
yes, sir.
I have to tell you how fast this happened. When they initially briefed we were going to have a branch, it was going to be a 5-year plan. And when General Odierno went down in late spring to Fort Gordon and saw how much work it was, he goes, "What stops us from doing this now?" I said, "Ourselves." And he said, "That's it, I want a branch." And so they did a little research, and they said, "What does it take to establish a branch?" And they pulled out the last Department of the Army order on this, and it has one sentence: "I hereby establish the branch of aviation," signed, Secretary of the Army. So it's like, well, the staffing on this will be nice. One sentence. And so it was a little bit of work, but you can imagine on a process that normally takes years, this was about 4 months total to get this in place, and the entire branch will be instantiated by 1 October this year. Enlisted, warrant officers, and we're working on a civilian career field. Right now they'll be managed separately, not in the intelligence or in the signal. And so that's going to be a huge advance. But to think that 2 of our young officers thought about that well in advance, really well done. So thank you.
And I think we'd be remiss without pointing out that the individual, I believe, who wrote the one sentence for the cyber branch is in the audience. Is that a true statement? So Colonel Andy Hall was the Army G1 is the person who did that and made it happen. We must know from whence we came. So for the lieutenants and captains in the room, 30 years from now when you're on stage, you'll be able to say, you know, you knew these people. It's very cool. So with that, I turn it over.